Hi everyone, welcome back to the Puttering Penman. Today I'm going to talk about things I like and dislike about Lamy pens. So I have owned a Lamy Safari, a Lamy Studio, both of which I currently have here, and I've also owned a Lamy 2000 before, but I sold that pen. You can see the full review if you want to know why. And then I've also used several other pens both at the Lamy boutiques in San Francisco and New York, and also at pen shows and pen meetups that, my pen friends own. So, again, these are my opinions. If you love Lamy pens or dislike Lamy pens, that's totally fine with me. These are just my opinions, things that I have noticed over my decade plus using fountain pens. So first thing I like, Lamy pens are very high quality. I'm talking in terms of like build quality for the bodies and the nibs. This pen is gotta be 7 or 8 years old at this point. This was my everyday carry for it has been for like 6 months straight, and then on and off again. It's just really good. Not showing any signs of wear. Nib is really good. The Studio also, this is a metal-bodied pen, very nice. I have no trouble with thinking that like these are gonna hold up for like the rest of my life. Another thing I like is that Lamy nibs are very reliable. These pens write, they write well. I know like I'm not gonna have issues with like hard starts, skipping, things like that. They're just very reliable. In fact, let me do a quick writing sample. So, that's very enjoyable to write with. We'll talk a little bit more about the writing experience in a minute. So both of these pens are inked with Pilot Black. I'll explain why in a minute. Another thing I really like about Lamy pens is that on these steel nib pens, like the Safari, All-Star, Lux, which is just LX, and then the Studio, and I believe there's some other pens like that. The Accent, Aeon, Emporium, and Scala. For all of those pen models, these steel nibs can actually be swapped off, and it's pretty easy. Maybe I'll make a video about it if you guys really want, although I believe some exist already. But you basically you can hold the nib here and just pull off. You can also use like a piece of Scotch tape to help you get the nib off, and then you can buy these extra Lamy nibs for, I think it's like $15, and put it on the pen. So a lot of reasons to like that. One, if your nib is damaged, you can just buy a new nib for $15 and put it on. Also, you can buy one pen body and you could get, an extra fine, medium, broad, and I think they also sell double broad, or maybe it's the stubs, the stub nibs, and you could, pay, it would probably be like $60, $75 for all the nibs, but have one pen body, and then, you have every type of nib, every nib size you want from Lamy. I really like that. I wish more pen companies did that, made it easy for you to buy replacement parts and swap out nibs. So something I dislike, though, about Lamy pens is, this isn't a huge deal, but they have two types of converters that are not completely universal. So, actually, in general, one thing I don't like about both of these converters is that they have these square ends, which I think just makes it a little bit clumsy for me to twist and untwist. It just makes it a little bit harder for me to find the right spot as I twist and untwist to ink the pen. I was talking to my wife about this as I was planning the video, and she actually says she likes that about these pens, so, personal preference. So the red converter is the Z28. It used to be like the Z24, and this is an updated model of that. So this only fits certain pens. It fits the Safari, Vista All-Star, Lux, and Nex pens. And then the black one is the more universal Z27 converter. And this, I believe, fits every Lamy cartridge converter pen. So this black converter will fit here into the Safari. The difference is that the Z28 red converter has a little notch right here. So as you can see, like the Safari has cutouts here, but the Studio does not. And so that's why the red converter will not fit into the Studio. I mean, I'm sure that this like knob does, makes the converter sit in there more securely, but I just wish they had one converter, especially since they're otherwise the same ink capacity and like everything else about the converter is the same. Just kind of confusing because like if you buy a Safari and then you buy a different Lamy pen that cannot use the Z28, like it's just a little unfortunate you have to buy a different converter for it. Again, that's not a huge deal, just a little bit. Just a little bit annoying. So something else I don't like is that I feel like Lamy's nib sizes are a little bit inconsistent. So these two nibs are slightly different. They're both steel nibs, but the Studio has what's called a PVD coated nib. And there is some disagreement online about if the PVD coating actually makes any difference other than cosmetics. So as you can see here, my Safari nib in fine writes much broader than the Studio nib in fine. I put same paper, same ink, just to test it out. And the Studio writes a lot finer than the Safari. There are other people who have posted, such as on Reddit and Fountain Pen Network, who have said that the opposite. Their Studio PVD nib writes broader than their Safari nib in like the same fine or medium or extra fine. So there seems to be some inconsistency there over how broad of a line your pen will put down. And that's something I dislike. Obviously, every pen brand is different. They have their own tolerances for what they consider a fine or a medium. But this is quite a big difference to think about. Like when you order a fine, you want to know what you're getting. And the reason I sold my Lamy 2000 is because I ordered an extra fine, thinking it would be slightly finer than this Safari, sort of like what the Studio would be. But when I got the extra fine, it was actually really extra fine. And so really I should have ordered a fine on the Lamy 2000. So a little bit frustrating there that you would hope that as you buy the entry-level pens from Lamy, you get a sense of how broad or narrow a fine or medium or whatever size nib you like is. And I think that, at least in my experience, it has been difficult to figure that out. So the final thing that I dislike about Lamy is completely a personal opinion. Like, I can totally see if nobody in the world agrees with me on this. But I, in general, think that Lamy sort of has an imbalance of form and function. So in my day job and like my education I do a lot of design work. And so obviously I don't design fountain pens, so I'm not an expert there. Lamy, I'm sure, has an incredible team that's much better than I am. But I do believe that they have an imbalance in form versus function, where you consider form being like the beauty of the pen and function being like how useful it is for the user. So I think a lot of pen brands try to stick in the middle, whereas Lamy, I feel like, sort of makes all their pens at the edges, if that makes sense. So the Safari, I think, is a very functional pen. I personally don't think it's very good looking or beautiful. That is obviously just my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people think that the Safari looks really good. But very functional pen. But in terms of like beauty, like I think the clip is really ugly and sort of makes it hard to hold. But it is a really good clip. It sticks to your, pockets, your notepad, things like that, and it will not let go. But it's also easy to clip on and off, so it works really well, and I get why they did it. Also, the ink window, I think it makes the pen look ugly, but it is convenient. I personally would have preferred them not have the ink window, like the rollerball version, because it's not that hard to unscrew the body just to check your ink level. That's, and then again, the triangular grip. I don't like the triangular grip for my writing. I also think it's not very good looking, but it is very functional. So I think this is a pen that fits over here on the function side. Studio is a very beautiful pen, kind of all the opposite qualities of the Safari. So it falls over here on the form side, very beautiful. The clip, very beautiful. It's easy to put, to clip on stuff, but it doesn't really hold to anything. It doesn't like stick to even my jeans pockets, which are very thick. It doesn't stick to like the back of my notepad. So not very useful there. This version has a more grippy section, but usually the grip on the Studio pens is chrome, and I have oily hands, and I've had issues with pens in the past with metal sections where I just can't grip and write very well with it. So this model's is good there, doesn't have that problem, but other Studio models, in my opinion, I have trouble gripping it while I write. It's also, it's pretty well balanced. I wouldn't say it's an extreme of only beauty and not function. Like, it works well. I think it is pretty close to the middle, but again, it's just I feel like Lamy has one of these things where they either make a pen that they want to make it really beautiful, or they make it something that's super functional, but in my opinion, not very good looking. They even left, the screw here, which in some sense, is classic German design. There's the Mies van der Rohe, Chicago style of architecture, Mies van der Rohe is German, coming out of that Bauhaus design era, like to make skyscrapers with the steel visible, all the structural elements visible. And I feel like that's kind of what this screw top is, but I don't particularly like it, so just my opinion. I do think one Lamy pen that does a good job of balance is the Lamy 2000. Again, I think it's both a very functional pen and a pretty beautiful pen. I kind of have some reservations about, I think the ink window could be better on it. And then I also think they have these little metal clips that is what the cap actually clips onto, that stick out of the pen body. They didn't bother me too much when I was writing with it, but I would prefer they had figured out a way to cap the pen differently. But overall, I think the Lamy 2000 is probably their best pen in the form versus function, balance department. So anyway, that is very much my opinion. I'm sure I'm totally fine with people if they disagree with me on that. Well, I hope this video was helpful, or if not, at least entertaining, and I will see you next time. Bye!